David Reynolds, a 38-year-old state trooper, held his role as a police officer in the highest regard. Life hadn't been easy for him. He was raised by his mother after his father's sudden passing just months before his birth. They struggled financially, and his mother faced intense societal pressure as the neighborhood's only independent single mother, which likely influenced David's career choice. "I want to be a policeman, Mom. I'll be a cop and take care of you forever," he promised her. But this story isn't just about why Reynolds became a cop or how much he loved his job. It's about the unpredictable nature of destiny and the unexpected twist that life can take, moments that can connect two strangers in unforgettable ways. David would discover this one quiet summer morning while conducting a routine traffic stop at one of the city's hotspots. Throughout his career, Reynolds had made thousands of traffic stops all over the city. It wasn't his favorite part of the job, but it was necessary, and he did it without complaint. In fact, he was one of the officers with the most tickets on record. Whenever he saw a driver violating the rules, he would quickly stop the vehicle and, in most cases, issue a ticket. Most of the tickets he wrote were for speeding and not wearing seatbelts. However, that morning, the ticket he was about to write would be different from all the others. In fact, he wouldn't write one at all because, as he was about to, he got one of the biggest surprises of his life. A couple of hours into the checkpoint, Reynolds noticed a white BMW driving in the next lane. What caught the officer's attention wasn't the speed or whether the driver was wearing a seatbelt. It was the car's tinted windows, which were far darker than the legal limit allowed in the state of Texas. Seeing this, David wondered how the driver could even see through such dark windows. He rushed to stop the vehicle, concerned that the driver's vision might be impaired, potentially causing an accident. It's incredible that people still don't realize how dangerous tinted windows can be. You can't possibly see through those windows. Sooner or later, you'll cause an accident, the disgruntled officer muttered as he swerved and pulled behind the vehicle. The driver in the white car quickly pulled over to the shoulder, seemingly confused as to why he was being stopped. When the man got out of the vehicle, he appeared a bit annoyed but remained polite. "Why are you stopping me, officer? I was barely driving at 50 km/h. I thought the speed limit on the stretch of road was 80 km/h. Was I breaking any rules?" the man asked, his tone frustrated but respectful. He was a large man, likely between 50 and 60 years old, maybe older. He didn't seem like the type to cause trouble or argue over a ticket. David quickly informed the driver of the reason for the stop, leaving the man visibly confused. "Is it really against the law to have tinted windows like this? I had no idea. I feel so foolish. I've been in law enforcement my whole life, you know. I should have known this wasn't allowed. Maybe it's an age thing. Please forgive me," the driver said, clearly embarrassed by his mistake. Hearing that the man had been a police officer took David by surprise, and suddenly, he began to see the man in a very different light. "Have you?" Reynolds asked, clearly surprised. "That's right, my boy. I was a police officer for over 30 years. That's why I'm so embarrassed that another officer had to stop me to warn me that I was breaking the law." "Oh, what a disaster it is to get older," the man said with a chuckle, holding his hands to his head. "Don't worry. When I'm your age, I'm sure I'll make mistakes too. Besides, it's not such a big deal. The important thing is that you know about it now and can fix it," Reynolds replied, lightening the mood. Suddenly, the two men felt much more comfortable with each other, and what had started as something unpleasant and full of formalities quickly turned into a pleasant conversation between friends. Little did they know, that first meeting would be the beginning of a long and deep friendship, one that perhaps had already begun long before that summer morning on the road. The man's name was Eric Thompson, and he had been one of the best police officers of his generation. This intrigued Reynolds even more, and he couldn't help but want to learn more about the mysterious man he had almost ticketed. As they chatted, David discovered that Eric had worked as a police officer in a nearby town. To his surprise, Eric had served in Piscataway, the very town where David grew up and where his mother still lived. "You were a Piscataway police officer. My mother lives there. I was born and raised there until I graduated as a policeman and got transferred here." "What a coincidence," Reynolds exclaimed, excitement in his voice. Thompson's expression shifted, a spark of recognition flickering in his eyes as he studied Reynolds more closely. After a brief pause, he asked, "When were you born, David?" "I was born in 1991, David replied. Eric's curiosity deepened. He recalled an incident from about 30 years ago and sensed a connection. "This might sound strange since we just met, but could you tell me what day you were born in 1991? "I need to check something," Thompson asked carefully. David, puzzled but willing to share, answered without hesitation. "I was born on October 5th, 1991. "What street did you grow up on?" Eric pressed. Still uncertain about where the conversation was heading, David responded honestly. "I grew up on Pill Place, and I was actually born there. My mother gave birth to me prematurely at home. I almost didn't make it. Not many people can say they were born at home these days, but I was." "Why is this so important to you?" he asked, intrigued. At David's answer, Eric couldn't contain his joy, nearly startling him with an exuberant shout. "It's you! I knew it was you since you told me you were born in 1991. There was something familiar about you. I'm the police officer who helped your mother give birth to you. I saved your life, David," Thompson exclaimed, full of emotion. The turn of events left Reynolds speechless. It took him a few seconds to process the information. Suddenly, the man who had brought him into the world was standing in front of him. Just an hour ago, Reynolds had been considering giving him a ticket. At the time, I was still a rookie with only 3 years on the force. I received an emergency call to Pio Place while I was on patrol. I was told that a young woman named Jessica was in labor and might not be able to wait for the ambulance, Thompson explained. I didn't think twice and headed over to the house to assist her. In training, they prepare us for these types of emergencies, but you never think you're actually going to have to deal with one, especially now when you've only been on the force for 3 years. But there I was, standing next to your mother, ready for anything, Thompson explained excitedly. David was in shock, listening intently and trying to process all the information. When I got to the house, I knew I had to deliver the baby. Most officers go their entire careers without delivering a baby, and I had to do it after only 3 years on the job. I was terrified, but not your mother. She was in excruciating pain, but she wanted to meet you so badly that she didn't care. She was actually guiding me on how to help her. It was such an exciting moment. I've never experienced anything like it again. I'm not a father. I've never been married. So you could say your birth was the closest I've come to experiencing fatherhood, he confessed, still full of excitement. David could hardly believe what he was hearing. The baby Eric delivered that day was him. Growing up, David had heard stories about how a police officer had been there for his birth, which filled him with pride and fueled his desire to become a police officer himself. But he never imagined he would meet the man behind that incredible moment in such an unexpected way. I owe you my life. My mother told me about you so many times. The story of my birth is famous among my relatives and friends. When I was little, some people even called me the miracle baby, and it was all thanks to you. Without your help, my mother could have died during childbirth, and I wouldn't be here today. What a great joy it is to finally meet you, David said, emotion welling up in him as tears filled his eyes. Do you still want to give me that ticket? Eric asked jokingly. David burst out laughing and pulled him into a tight hug, sealing their newfound friendship. After learning that Eric was the man who had brought him into the world, David couldn't bring himself to write him a ticket. He felt sure that Eric would resolve the tinting issue on his own. Above all, he was simply overjoyed to finally meet the officer who had played such a pivotal role in his life. Without Thompson, David wouldn't have become the person he was today. And now he had the chance to express his gratitude. Without a doubt, it was the most important traffic stop of his entire career.